Tennessee falls 3-2 at the hands of Tennessee Tech. A 23-game win streak has been snapped as we welcome you into Around the Horn. I'm Eric Cain. Ben McKee is live from Smokies Stadium. Ben, in the grand scheme of things, one loss does not define a season. We've talked about this plenty of times on our Diamond Balls podcast, but it always kind of sucks to lose. But ultimately, Tennessee didn't have it tonight. A fantastic outing from Carter Janaway, who got the win.
Yeah, you never want to lose, and the players were upset after the game, and Tony Vitello was really upset after the game, as he should be. But in the grand scheme of things, tonight won't matter in the long run. I mean, last year, Tennessee loses 14-0 to Charlotte in a midweek game, and nobody wants to discuss that game anymore because now when you think of last season, you think of them making it to Omaha. So in the grand scheme of things, hopefully it'll pay off in that sense. Tennessee was really good on the mound, aside from one pitch. Ben Joyce and the homer that he gave up, you just have to tip your hat to the Tennessee Tech right fielder. I mean, he got every bit of it and absolutely crushed it. And that gave Tennessee Tech the lead. But on the batter prior, the inning prior to Ben Joyce coming in, Mark McLaughlin was in, and he gave up a run trying to help Wyatt Evans out when it was a situation with a runner on third. And it's a weak hit ground ball to third, and Trey Lipscomb just didn't have time to get it over to first, and that was some bad luck. So if you kind of look back on that, I mean, the Ben Joyce homer then would have just tied the game. So some unfortunate luck for Tennessee. But I think the bigger story, aside from the one pitch that Ben Joyce gave up, because aside from that, the pitching staff was terrific tonight. The bigger story is the bats tonight. Obviously, everybody's making a big deal with the wood bats. I mean, it's yes, it's a difference, but I thought Tony Vitello summed it up perfectly. The difference between the wood bats and the metal bats is the difference in the scoreboard. And instead of losing 3-2 with wood bats, you probably would have lost 6-5 with the normal bats. So there's not as many runs scored on wood bats, which is why professionals use wood bats. But the biggest problem, not the difference in the bats, but the approach at the plate. Tennessee just really undisciplined, swinging a lot of pitches out of the zone, and that was the difference tonight and why Tennessee wasn't able to come back in the later innings.
Yeah, I thought Carter Janaway was, Ganaway, was really good for Tennessee Tech tonight, 9 strikeouts. And if you watch the game, you saw, Tennessee was swinging out of the zone. I mean, the bats had nothing to do with this game. And I agree. I think Tony summed it up perfectly there. Just a night where you just didn't quite have it. But again, nothing to overreact about. But it is a game where Tennessee was out hits, 4-6, obviously lost 3-2. Both teams did make an error. But what were some of the other things Tony Vitello said post-game that maybe might have stuck out to you?
That they were out of sorts from the time that they showed up to the ballpark, making the bus ride over. He alluded to all of the players and coaches coming in different gates throughout Smokies Stadium. Not sure how that happened. It sounded like somebody wasn't here to greet them, and one gate wasn't unlocked that they thought was going to, so they'll walk all over the ballpark and everybody got separated, and then they get here, they're expecting to take batting practice and they don't take batting practice for whatever reason. I don't know why, but Tennessee showed up thinking that they were going to take batting practice and they did not. And Tony also said that they were just kind of out of sorts during the game, players making unusual decisions, coaches making unusual decisions. Credit to Tony, he took the blame, said it all started with him and it trickled down, but it just seemed like just from the moment Tennessee showed up and they couldn't even get into the stadium and they had to search for a way in, it was just all out of sorts. And you saw that. Tennessee was very uncharacteristic at the plate. Again, the pitching is not a huge deal. I don't even look at that. No. Again, tip the hat at the Tennessee Tech right fielder. That ball that he hit, still going. He caught up to a 101 Ben Joyce fastball. And aside from that, Ben Joyce was pretty good. And it was Johnny Holstaff where they were pitching their entire pitching staff and getting a lot of guys work, and most all of them performed really well. I think Wyatt Evans, he did get some outs, but he also gave up some base hits as well. Gave up Tennessee Tech had their first 2 base hits of the game off of Wyatt Evans with 2 outs. Gets 2 quick outs, and then as a freshman, gives up back-to-back singles. Mark McLaughlin has to come in. That's when you have the situation where Tennessee Tech hits the weak ground ball, and they're able to score. It's just bad luck. But at the plate, just uncharacteristic. And it seemed like Tennessee was just kind of, I don't know if flustered is the right word, but they were out of sorts all day long. And it stems kind of going back to the BP and just arriving.
Yeah, Tennessee left 9 men on base tonight, 3 left on base at the top from Christian Moore, 2 from Jordan Beck, and then you had 2 from Blake Burke. But ultimately, Tennessee lost tonight, and not the end of the world. You are not going to win the rest of the games on your schedule. It's baseball, and baseball's got a way of humbling you. But what did the players say? Anything else that sticks out from this game? And what did the players say moving ahead now to Alabama, which you don't want to lose in the SEC, obviously. So another big SEC series at Lindsey Nelson Stadium here this weekend.
Right. And I don't know, it's Tennessee, Alabama in baseball, but aside from Blake Tidwell, there are a lot of Tennessee people who do not like Alabama. And there will be hard feelings this weekend at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. So you definitely, not only do you not want to lose an SEC series, you don't want to lose your first one or first series of the season to Alabama. And I would be very surprised if Tennessee didn't come out more locked in. Jarrell Ortega was the only guy that we talked to, the only player, I should say, that we talked to after the game. And two things that stood out to me was that the approach at the plate was not good, which anybody who knows baseball could watch that and see that. But Jarrell Ortega confirmed that, said the approach was really bad all night. And you go look at how many walks that they've drawn all year. They lead the SEC in walks. They were swinging at pitches out of the zone all night long. Yeah. And I think part of that was the umpire getting to them and them being frustrated with some calls. But in addition to the poor approaches tonight, Jarrell Ortega really emphasized that tonight could be a good thing for them. I think anybody who's familiar with college baseball understands that. Tennessee needed to lose at some point. I know it sounds crazy, but it was good for them to lose, and better today than this weekend. And Eric, I'd be very surprised if Tennessee didn't come out with the tails on fire this weekend. I was kind of, before tonight's game, Eric, I don't know how you felt, but I was kind of weary, maybe too strong of a phrase to use, but I was kind of weary of maybe how Tennessee performs this weekend. Alabama's playing real good baseball. Tennessee feeling real comfortable. I think tonight was good for them to wake them up because, again, you'd much rather this happen tonight than this weekend. And again, I'd be very surprised if they didn't play with the tails on fire this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, even before the loss tonight, you were seeing Tennessee showing a human side for maybe the first time all season long here lately. Still winning games, and that's great. But again, baseball is not football. One loss is nothing to freak out about. It sucks, sure, but it's going to be all right. It's how you respond from it, like we talk about all the time. But nonetheless, Tennessee will move on. Game one of that 3-game set at Lindsey Nelson Stadium will be Friday at 6:30. And Ben will have it all covered for you right here at VolQuest.com. Final time, Tennessee falls to Tennessee Tech by the final score of 3-2 here in this midweek action from Smokies Stadium. He's been McKee. I'm Eric Cain here for Around the Horn.